What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Not always true for the general public, but definitely true for a hero like Batman, who somehow manages to survive all sorts of insane stunts and escape death even when it seems to have already consumed him. Join me as we count down the top 10 most ridiculous things Batman has survived, Part 2. Number 10. 28 opponents in 28 hours. During Scott Snyder's run on Batman, we also got to take a look back at Batman's past and his time training prior to being the beast of a man and hero that he is today. One such flashback saw a younger Bruce Wayne take on 28 opponents over the course of 28 hours. During a trial in Norway when he was just 24 years of age, Bruce refused to kill his opponents, so each hour a new one was added to the ring, or the pit, I guess. The hope was to get him to accept the fact that he would have to kill. Even when completely exhausted and in the face of potential defeat, Bruce refused. As a result, he still managed to be the victor in the end, because when more men were needed to continue the fight, they refused to enter the pit he was in and fight him. They were just too scared. Number 9. Broken skull. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Batman has broken every bone in his body. So it's not surprising that one of those bones happens to be in his skull. He was actually really lucky too. He only suffered a linear cranial fracture after a fight with Dr. Death during Scott Snyder's 0-year story arc in issue 26 of the 2011 Batman series. Dr. Death knew a lot about bones and used his super strength and knowledge to try at one point to basically pull apart Bruce Wayne's skull. As he wrapped his hands around Bruce's head and proceeded to squeeze and pull, younger Bruce was saved by the appearance of Jim Gordon, who shot Dr. Death and successfully scared him off. While I'm sure Bruce Wayne here was only a few moments away from having his skull completely crushed or disassembled, he instead gets off with just a fracture. Still, a fracture is a break in the bone, so technically his skull was still at least slightly broken. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like it, I mean, Batman has survived a lot of crazy stuff because plot armor, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Broken back. Breaking your back is a very severe injury, but not if you're Batman, and if you happen to know superpowered healers who can help speed along your recovery a bit. For this classic moment, you need to visit the story arc known as Batman Nightfall. A lot of people are amazed at Bruce's survival as a hero from his devastating defeat at the hands of Bane, who, yes, broke Batman's back over his knee. But in all honesty, if you have a spinal fracture, you can actually recover from that. Although the amount of time, treatment, and surgery needed to do so all depends on how severe that spinal fracture is. Bruce himself, even with all his money, was still out of commission for months while he had Azrael take over for him as he focused on his own recovery. Eventually, he would recover and return. Not only that, but it seems as though this is an injury that doesn't often even resurface frequently, nor cause any kind of limitation on his ability to fight as Batman. Now, that is amazing. Number 7. Leap of faith. Bruce's final act during his time of training was to base jump off of the top of Wayne Tower. Yeah, it was pretty intense, and I imagine a frightening final lesson. Bruce had experience training in base jumping before, but even then, his first attempt in Gotham at doing so, didn't go so well. In the first story in New Talent Showcase 2018, titled Batman Leap of Faith, we learned that Bruce did not land so smoothly from that jump and ended up with a dislocated elbow and a dislocated shoulder, a concussion, and some road rash. All in all though, he got off pretty easy. I'm just surprised he even managed to survive that. It's funny, but while I can't imagine Batman jumping off of Wayne Tower as like an established hero and full-grown adult, I cannot imagine anyone surviving that first jump, including like young Batman. I feel like that would be crazy. But I guess, how can you ever take more jumps without having first made it through your very first jump? Number 6. Gas tank explosion. This one comes from the Batman animated series, from a really awesome episode too, The Man Who Killed Batman, episode 51 of the animated series. Here, Sid the Squid appeared to be the man who accidentally became responsible for Batman's death. During a scuffle, Sid falls over a roof ledge, and Batman reaches out to help him back up. However, part of the ledge then gives way and dings a propane gas tank which lays below, damaging it. As Batman pulls Sid up, he himself seems to lose his balance and falls down toward the tank just as it explodes, leaving only a tattered piece of his cape behind. While the explosion is large and deadly enough that it seems though no one would be able to survive, we later learn that Batman somehow swung to safety and faked his own death as part of his own plan to solve a crime. Number 5. Buried alive. What would our part 2 be without some more times that Batman was buried alive? As I said on my part 1 of this list, Batman getting buried alive is so weirdly common in comics that we might actually be able to do a list list about just the times he managed to survive that. This time he was buried alive in the dceu in the direct-to-video animated film Justice League Doom. Doom is definitely inspired by the comic book story arc Tower of Babel, where Batman's defensive contingency plans for the rest of his League teammates, should they fly off the handle or turn evil, are basically used against him and the League. In Doom, the Legion of Doom, led by Vandal Savage, uses these to their advantage, and incapacitates the rest of the League after Batman is buried alive in his own father's coffin. Batman not only escapes, but also manages to help Cyborg save the fellow members of the League, as well as save the Earth from Savage's evil plan to eliminate 2/3 of its population. Number 4, fighting Superman. Really, when you think about the fact that Bruce Wayne is just a man, I mean an extremely skilled and intelligent and determined man, still just a man, it's impressive to think how he has gone toe-to-toe with so many superpowered opponents. During Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, one such superpowered opponent happened to be Superman himself. And this wasn't peak physique Batman either. This was Bruce's like an old Batman, coming out of retirement basically to take on Superman. Batman, of course, seemingly dies in his fight against Superman when he appears to suffer from a heart attack during their final fight. But of course, this was all a clever ruse. There was no heart attack. In reality, Batman just ingested poison to fake his death, and the kicker is that Clark actually knows that's what happened, but is, gonna be cool about it. Kinda makes you wonder if this whole fight actually needed to happen in the first place, really. And in Hush, a younger Batman doesn't just survive fighting a mind-controlled Superman commanded by Poison Ivy to kill him, he completely beats Supes, so there's also that. Number 3, Joker ruining his life. During the events of Joker War and leading up to it, Joker attempted to completely ruin Batman's life. And I feel like in many ways he kind of succeeded. He took all of Bruce Wayne's money and used it to turn Gotham into a war zone. Batman was struggling on all fronts here. Not only that, but leading up to the events of Joker War near the end of their Dark Design story arc in issue number 93 of the 2016 Batman series, Batman ended up fighting Deathstroke and being stabbed straight through the thigh. Ouch. Deathstroke was working for Joker, it turned out, and the Bat ended up being in pretty bad shape even going into that war because of this. Not only was his money and health taken from him, but Joker had Punchline also blast him with her own special brew of Joker venom, blended with some fear toxin, a little bit of Bane's venom juice, which left him wrestling with his sanity and struggling to discern reality for a good amount of the story. Number 2, just a torso and a head. In the Dark Multiverse, the worst kind of gruesome survival becomes possible. Although he be an alternate Batman and Bruce Wayne, he is still Batman and Bruce Wayne, so I think we can count this one even though it is an alternate version. I'm talking about the Batman from the Tales of the Dark Multiverse Batman Nightfall story. This Batman becomes known as the Broken. In this version of the Nightfall story arc conclusion, Night's End, Batman does not succeed in taking back his cape and cowl from Azrael, whom he loaned them to look after Gotham in his absence. Instead, Azrael wins that battle and becomes cemented as Gotham's champion, taking the name later of Saint Batman. Azrael removes Bruce's limbs, but keeps him alive, reduced to just his torso and his head. Here, Azrael also seems to enjoy somewhat visiting and tormenting Bruce, as he aims to prove that he is the better Batman between them. Eventually, Bruce escapes Azrael and goes on to become the Broken, a nanotech cyborg Batman whose torment actually shapes him into something much worse than his own captor in the end. Number 1, fighting the Reverse Flash. When it comes to fighting someone out of his power class like Superman, at least Batman has knowledge on his side. He knows Clark pretty well. So fighting Superman, he's got a few aces up his sleeves, as someone who is known for creating the perfect plans and for his own deductive skills. But when it comes to someone like the Reverse Flash, this is an impossibly powerful villain and someone that Batman does not know as intimately in the slightest. So what's a Bat to do? Well, mainly just stall for time. Batman uses what he knows to make a plan. He knows he can't win against Reverse Flash, he has some knowledge of how the Flash would handle a fight like this, and fortunately, he knows that his friend, the Flash, Barry Allen, will be back at the Batcave shortly, which means he really only has to survive until Barry gets back. Counting down the seconds till Barry returns, Batman simply does his best to stall and survive, knowing that the Flash can take Thawne on. Fortunately, he not only survives till then, but he also gets lucky when Barry is late. With Reverse Reverse Flash picking up the Watchmen button that was in the Batcave, traveling to the other pre-New 52 reality, and ultimately getting zapped by Dr. Manhattan and killed before he can return to Batman's and the New 52 world. What do you think are some of the most amazing things that Batman has survived? Do you think it's actually possible for one man to survive all this crazy stuff? Or is it only possible for you in the pages of fiction? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host, Amanda McKnight. Till next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.